If you get the feeling that on occasion I misrepresent some of my honorable guests, you may be onto something. Take, for example, Professor Lawrence Krauss, who, for 6 hours, failed to convey particle physics to me. Obviously, it was a total failure on his part, but, if pressed, I will admit that a small part of the failure can be attributed to me. I did lose quite a lot of sleep on that, and decided to rectify the situation using the moral compass God gave me for exactly those occasions. I decided to invite Professor Krauss to my house for a free-for-all discussion. Of course, I didn't invite Professor Krauss on his own. That would be a waste of another 6 hours. And so I invited 2 creation scientists of equal or better credential, Ray Comfort and Rabbi Amnon Isaak, whom some of you haven't yet encountered. If you must know, Rabbi Isaak is the #1 lost sheep hunter in the Holy Land. Today, I offered my guests coffee and fruit and then continued. We are going to skip the how and swiftly proceed to the why questions, if that's okay with you. Professor Krauss mumbled something about the two being one and the same, but Professor Isaak looked at him with disdain and said, "The how question is the stupidest question of them all." The 2 other guests looked at him blankly, and he proceeded. Take, for example, a striker playing for the Israeli football team. He has a chance to score a goal, but he misses. The 2 other guests looked at him and didn't even ask what he meant. "We can all see how he misses the chance," said Rabbi Isaak, his eyes shining with inspiration. "He tries to kick the round ball, but instead he kicks the flat earth." Professor Krauss took a sip of his coffee and wrote something in his notebook. "So you see," said Rabbi Isaak, "it's not the how. Even I can kick the earth. The answer is, he missed the goal because the game took place on a Sabbath, and he didn't want to offend God." Ray Comfort took a banana which I sensibly placed before him and put it in his mouth, taking care to peel it first. "And it's not only football," said Rabbi Isaak. "We all know how to behead our brothers. The Bible is full of those sensible instructions. The real question is why, or more to the point, why not?" I realized I neglected to invite a Muslim scholar to the discussion, but Rabbi Isaak did a fine job representing that part of the world. Professor Krauss, who by the way is a son of the Jewish faith, took a bite of the apple I sensibly supplied him with. It didn't seem to help him understand his fellow Jews' arguments. You may have noticed that I am named after Isaac, the boy who was about to be slaughtered by his father. As you know, Abraham, our father, was very handy with a knife, and the fact that he didn't slit Isaac's throat wasn't down to technique. It was down to God. When you're about to do something, you must ask God first to tell you what to do. For example, if the Israeli striker would have stopped to ask God if that was okay to score on Sabbath, God would have said yes. Sunday, as Professor Krauss knows full well, is not our Sabbath. The problem with Israeli footballers is this: they pray before the game, but once it starts, God can yell at them as much as he wants, they don't listen. The same happens to those who read the Bible before battle, and why they shout "Allah is great" is beyond me. I had to agree the Lord's ways were mysterious. It's obvious that jihadi warriors are reading the wrong book before they go killing and raping. The question is why. At this point, Ray Comfort has finished the banana, which amazingly disappeared in his mouth without a trace. The same happened to Professor Krauss's apple, core and all. They were none the wiser. Rabbi Isaac's watermelon was left untouched. "What?" he said. He took a big knife out of his belt and slit the watermelon in 2. I looked at my watch. It was 6 hours. I thought perhaps it was time for Professor Krauss, or, more sensibly, Ray Comfort, to address the question of why. Luckily, I chose Ray, for I tend to understand him a little better than the distinguished professor. "The distinguished rabbi's points are probably well made," said Ray, referring to Rabbi Amnon Isaak, just so we are on the same page here. "And I tend to agree with the parts in which I assume he shows how hopeless the atheist worldview is. Professor Krauss was about to say something, but it wasn't his turn. I have to compliment the distinguished rabbi and say that I understood him better than I understood my colleague Professor Krauss the last time we debated. Professor Krauss smiled and said nothing, but to better understand his point, it would be helpful if he could present them in English.